College Football 27 is here, and with the new year comes the new hardest rebuilds in the game. The last 2 years we did this, and you all enjoyed it so much, we brought it back for year 3. There are familiar faces and definitely some new ones in our top 10, but be sure to hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and send this to a friend who needs help choosing a team to start their dynasty with. And let's get straight into this. This year, EA actually included a difficulty ranking for each team when you start the game, and this is a decent surface level notation that relies heavily on the new AD demeanor feature, but I have created my own formula that compares all the teams in the game and weighs each criteria differently to give a better assessment of the difficulty to play with each team. With that in mind, the criteria is as follows. First, we assess the overall variance between the team we are looking at and their conference opponents every year, since you play the majority of games against them. Next, we look at the pipelines of each school, and with the help of the zinking ranking, we divvy out points accordingly. Thirdly, we look at the new dynasty point feature, and we look at this two different ways. First, we take the total points available, and then we also have a comparison to your conference opponents. The comparison to conference opponents is due to the fact that the playoff appearances heavily influence champ contender grade, and beating your conference year after year is the best way to increase this. Lastly, we assess all the school grades that are stagnant or change very slowly, since things like coach prestige and coach loyalty and pro potential are extremely variable. I have put the weight of each category on screen if you're interested. If you have any questions on anything I just mentioned, be sure to comment below and I'll get you an answer. Before we get into the top 10, we have to give our honorable mentions. These are going to be the 5 teams that just fell right outside the top 10. Starting at the 15th and moving forward, we have Delaware, South Alabama, Coastal Carolina, Sam Houston State, and Akron. Most of these schools found themselves in the top 10 this past year, but they only slightly missed it this season. Even though they aren't in the top 10, all of these teams provide a really solid challenge if that's what you're looking for, so I recommend you giving them a chance anyways. At the 10th spot, we have the Kennesaw State Owls. They were in the number 1 spot a year ago, but have made some solid improvements after a good season in the Conference USA. They still rank in the top 10 in all 3 of our categories and only have a measly 565 dynasty points to stint in year 1. One thing I do want to point out for the school grades as a whole is that EA has increased the conference prestige of the lower conferences in the game. This should open up a lot more recruits compared to the last 2 years, since the Conference USA has a C+ this year and they were all the way down at a D last year, which is a massive jump. At number 9, we have the UAB Blazers, and on the surface, this looks like a big mistake. They have over 1,000 dynasty points, aren't in the top 10 in any of the 3 major categories, but their biggest issue is the variance of their NIL compared to their conference mates. The average of the conference is double what the Blazers have, and this will cause a bunch of issues in the conference. Outside of this, they have poor grades for the most part, but at least you have a mediocre academics grade for some easy recruiting pools that care about that school grade. You also still do have that 1K points, which is going to be the most on this list. So this may be one of the easier options in our top 10. New Mexico State takes up our 8th spot, and with the Aggies comes some pretty abysmal NIL. With only 660 to spend in year 1, it will be a tough time to land recruits. Throwing that your highest grade is a C+ in conference prestige, it gets even harder. Luckily for the Aggies, they have one of the lowest overall variances in the top 10, so you may be able to steal some games and find yourself looking at the conference title if you're lucky. At lucky number 7, we have the ODU Monarchs. Coming out of the Sun Belt, they have the second to lowest conference grade at a C and not much else to show for it in any of the other departments. Dynasty points start at 760, which might get you a player or 2 more than some other teams on this list, but since you're at the bottom of the total poll in the conference, getting wins may be harder than you think. The one thing they do have going for them is that they are situated in the Tidewater pipeline, and that could play to your advantage towards the later years of your rebuild. Just outside the top 5, we have Ball State. With the worst conference prestige in the game, it's going to be hard to compete with other group of 5 teams, even though they are pretty solid in terms of overall variance. Outside of this, they have the 6th worst dynasty point total on this list, which makes it doubly hard to get those recruits. Similar to some other teams, they are at least competitive in their conference, but even then, that may not be enough to sneak into the postseason at any point, even in the conference title game. Before we get to the top 5, be sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you can stay up to date on all things College Football 27. We have a ton of great content for you all playing this year, and I'm super excited for you all to enjoy that. Also, if I could ask you for one more thing, be sure to hit that hype button below if you're on mobile. It helps us grow since we're such a small channel, and I would be super grateful. But anyways, let's get back to this top 5. Cracking into the top 5, we have UConn. Before we dive deeper, I will say UConn and the next two teams are separated by mere decimal points. It is the closest I have seen the rankings since starting this series. Anyways, the Huskies have avoided the list in years past, mostly due to the way EA ranked independents in terms of conference prestige. This year, they get a downgrade to their grade to a C, and with their overall being pretty low in comparison to years prior, it knocked them down a rung as well. NIL is a little higher than other teams on this list, but it's still very low regardless. Luckily, they have a really solid academics rating, so you could sneak a few players over other schools here and there. Oh, and you also get to schedule whoever you want, so you could load up on 12 cupcakes, which would boost your school as well, but I'm not sure that would be too appealing to the playoff committee though. ULM takes the 4th spot, and it's pretty easy to see why. They sit barely above 500 dynasty points to start your run. Along with this, they have 4 Fs in 7 of the grades we looked at. They are also near the bottom of the conference in terms of overall by a significant margin, and outside of some Power 5 schools, they have the lowest in our rankings. I tried to at least make one good thing for each team, so I guess their jerseys are pretty nice. Starting off our top 3, we have a repeat member here of our top 3 from last year, and that's Missouri State. In their second year, they didn't get the same boost that Delaware did, even though they had a really solid season in their conference. But it's easy to see why when looking at the dynasty points. They are the first team on this list to drop below 500 points and ranked 3rd behind the next 2 teams in all of college football. They also have the worst pipelines in the game and have 5 of 7 Fs in school grades as well. At least they aren't in the MAC and have a C- in conference prestige, which is really the only bright spot you got going for you. Coming in for the silver medal, we have the Georgia State Panthers. On paper, they may seem a little easier than the Bears, but the big separator here is in the NIL versus conference opponents. They have the worst in the group of 5, so recruiting and staying competitive in their own league will be very, very difficult. Not to mention they only have 440 points to spend a year, which could be divvied out to one singular player, which is just crazy. At least you do get some decent grades, but the only one you have above a C is in campus lifestyle, and I can't remember the last time I saw a recruit who was really interested in that. And at the gold spot, we have the Kent State Golden Flashes. Some may have expected this even after a season where they got 5 wins, which is 5 times as many as they got in the 2 prior years. Regardless, they have the worst school grades in the game, the lowest NIL, and aren't even competitive in the worst conference, the MAC. But I will say, similar to some of the other teams, they do have some pretty awesome jerseys, and I feel like they have 15 different selections. But with that, those are our 10 hardest rebuilds to rebuild in college football 27. Let me know your thoughts below, but I think even outside of my rankings, a lot of you all will probably agree that these teams on this list make a ton of sense to be here. If you are curious about what P5 teams are the hardest to build, I'll be releasing a video in the next week or so detailing that, so stay on the lookout for that. But I appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next one.